I'm Michael Bain, and welcome to Triggered, coming to you from a steamy, hot, secret hidden bunker in the Rocky Mountains in Dragon House Studios, and brought to you this week by Hunter's HD Gold, the shooting glasses that change so you don't have to. And today I'm going to come back and revisit the Taurus 856 Defender Executive Grade. And this idea came up I was talking with Jeremy Stafford on the phone earlier today, and you know, Jeremy writes for Guns and Ammo. He's one of the most prolific gun writers. You see him on TV, on a number of different programs, and you're going to see him as a co-host, along with Rich Nance, on version 2.0 of The Best Defense, which we're going to start filming next week. And so Jeremy and I were talking about revolvers, and he said, what do you think of the 856 Defender, the executive grade gun? I said, it is a heck of a gun. I mean, it is a heck of a value. This is what, an $689 gun. Everything is hand-fitted. Everything is polished. It's got a great finish with it. And he goes, well, good. I'm glad you agree, because I think it's a great gun, too. So watch for it on The Best Defense. But now that I've had a little bit more time handling it, a couple of things I want to talk to you about with this gun, changes that I might make, and how it's settling in. I noticed initially maybe one or two rough spots in the trigger, but those have gone away. This is a very good double action polished trigger. I wouldn't want to take this trigger any lighter. I don't see any problems with it just the way it is. Obviously it's a bobbed hammer. It's a gun as a concealed carry gun intended to be carried and shot double action only. 38 special plus P6 shot gun. So what would I change? Well, assuming I'm going to keep it, which I feel pretty sure about, I really like shooting it, and I think it's a gun that, working with students, other people like that, they will enjoy shooting it as well. I'm going to probably black the rear sights. It's a notch front blade. I black the rear sights. I'll use a really, really expensive exotic gunsmithing tool called a Sanford Sharpie. I'll go and then I'll let it dry and go You know, it ain't love, but it ain't bad. On the front sight, I'm going to put a blotch, if you will, a spot of electric green front sight paint, because that's the color my eye picks up the quickest. You can get front sight paint from Brownells, no problem. It's very inexpensive. You can get a kit with all these different colors. So if you're in a psychedelic mood, you can kind of go crazy with your guns. We used to think that we had to cut a dovetail in here to go ahead and put in a piece of, say, red or green plastic and then fit it in. But in all honesty, the current front sight paint works every bit as well. Now, I want to show you another point here that I wasn't aware of when we talked last time. I've shot a lot of revolver competition. I've shot, I think, 3 revolver world championships. I've shot USPSA, IDPA with a revolver. I do a strong hand reload, and let me just show you a little of what that means. I'm shooting, bang, bang, I run out of bullets. So my strong hand hits the button, the cylinder release, pop it out with these 2 fingers, roll my hand up here, hit it, whoomp, loose rounds come out, and then I slip the gun into my weak hand. These same 2 fingers go into the window, hold it here, put the gun down because I want gravity to help me, and reach for a speed loader, which is on the right hand side of my belt. Now, when I had this gun last time, I didn't have the speed loaders. These are typically utterly boring HKS 10A speed loaders for the Model 10 Smith & Wesson and about 1 billion other guns. So I go here, I come up, I drop it. Now you see kind of a little bit what the problem is here. I need a little more relief on these beautiful walnut grips to make this drop easily. The way you would get around it right now is you drop higher up. But the problem with dropping higher up is it's easier to have a round fall out. The best thing to do to me is either going to Hogue pebbled rubber grips or taking the Dremel, and as you know, I'm banned by federal law from actually owning a Dremel, but I smuggle one across from Canada, and relieve these grips, this area of the grips right in here, just a little cut of relief. You can sort of see that on those VZ G10 grips. You can see how it's cut pretty far down and back. That's to relieve for the speed loader. So when we come back, I'm going to talk a little bit about some comparison here on the table. Welcome back to Triggered, where we're talking a little bit about revolvers. And I wanted to show you some of my other favorite revolvers. All these revolvers are mid-frame. They're somewhere between a snub frame and the heavier, larger caliber frame. They are designed for holster carry. With the exception of one, they're 3-inch revolvers, which to me is an ideal barrel length for a gun you're going to carry in a holster. So, of course, we've been talking about the 856. This is Kimber. It is one of the finest revolvers made. It's very, very good. I love the dovetailed in sights, this great front sight. So 357, it's light. This is a little over 25 ounces. And let me be honest with you, a 357 in a sub 30 ounce gun is going to be hard to control, especially if you're going up to say 125 grain plus P, self-defense load. This gun is, this holster was designed for this gun. It is from Kirkpatrick Leather. I talked to Mike Kirkpatrick about it, that I wanted a 3-inch holster for it. They worked this holster up for me. This is one of the best revolver holsters that I've ever had. A second in terms of my favorites, once again, 6-shot, 357. It is this guy. This is a 2.5-inch Ruger GP100. Special edition, I believe a Talos special edition. It's distributed through Lipsy's. And I have a collection of GP100s, including a 3-inch GP100. This particular gun, the Wiley Clap version, was built by Jiminy Custom. But I like this gun a lot. I hate giving up that 1/2 inch, but I will probably be able to survive. It is an excellent gun, and it's heavy. GP100 is a heavy revolver. This is a 36-ounce revolver, which will soak up the 357 rounds. The particular holster I chose for this gun is from Mernickel Holster. Of course, a company started by my good friend Bob Mernickel 1,000 years ago when it was still Indians and Wild West. But this is, once again, an excellent carry revolver holster. These are kind of super refined holsters. And you're going like, well, Michael, you know, gosh golly gee, you got custom holsters? We have an 856 Defender, which we got because these are $1,000 guns. When you get into the GP100, the Kimber, you get into the Smith & Wesson M66, M19, you get into the Colt of their, King Cobra, 6-shot, medium frame revolver. It's $1,000, Andy. You're going to be $900 to $1,200 within that frame. You say, well, I don't want to spend a fortune. I want a really good holster. I've got you covered. This is a Galco Combat Master holster, and it is easily one of the great classic holsters. I mean, you know, when you look at holsters made by some of the famous leather makers, the Combat Master from Galco is such a classic holster. It's beautifully made. They've been making it 1,000 years. It's perfect for this revolver. It is absolutely perfect. And it's not going to break the bank. So I wanted to show you this holster because it's so good and it's so perfect for this revolver. Now, obviously we've been talking about 357s. If you insist on a 357 because you're a masochist, because you just like pain, well, this is Defender 605 from Taurus. You give up a round. This is a 5-shot 357. Once again, it's coming in about 23 ounces, a little bit less than the Kimber, which means it's going to bark. There is no way to shoot a light 357 that does not bark. So this is a great selection of carry guns. I think that Taurus has done a great job with the executive grade of the 856. I'd like to see an executive grade of the 605. You never know. When we come back, it's time for Your Best Defense, and we're going to talk a little about what's happened in the last week. This week's Triggered is brought to you by Arms Corps, Rock Island Armory. What's your passion? Taurus, USA. Always ready, always bring it. Stoger, Everyday Tough. SDS Imports and the Thesis PX9. Thesis means quality. Hunter's HD Gold. They change so you don't have to. Welcome back to Triggered and our Your Best Defense segment. This week in Indiana we had an active shooter event that was shut down by an armed civilian. Absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. But what I want to talk about here specifically is what happens if you find yourself in that situation, in a mall, in a food court, in an area outside. And we've done a lot of research on this. These are ideas that I've taken from a lot of people who are really world-class studiers of active shooter type events, including Dr. William April, Ed Monk, Tom Givens. And so if I could break it down for you quickly, the first point is when you hear bang, bang, assume it is a gun. It is not a backfire. It is not a bunch of kids with firecrackers. It's not your UPS driver dropping a 50-pound box of China. It's a gun. So first thing you say, bang, it's a gun. What's the worst that can happen if it is your UPS driver dropping a 50-pound box of China? You look dumb. What's the consequence if it's a gun and you thought it was the UPS guy? You're dead. Not very good. Take the embarrassment. Second point for you to remember, always your first responsibility in a situation like an active shooter is your family and those in your care. You need to make sure you get those people out of the kill zone. That's your first responsibility. And then you decide if you're going to engage. But I've got some points there, and I think they're really important. And they're really simple. One of the things that I found in the course of my career in extreme sports and self-defense, the best rules are just a few rules, because that way it doesn't kind of flood your head. So you hear bang, let's say you're by yourself, or you've managed to get your family out, there's another bang. Question is where? Remember, in intuitive defensive shooting, we talk about how primates orient to the threat. You're likely going to do that, but you need to know where the shooter is. Second point, another W, who? What I mean by that is who is doing the shooting. Is it, in fact, an active shooter? Is it a smash and grab robbery like we're seeing so many of in the United States, where you've got a crew, usually a gang-based crew, coming in with sledgehammers, busting open jewelry stores, stealing a lot of stuff. There's usually a couple of guys there with a gun, and in several of those robberies, they've gone bang, bang. Now, it could be just a straight-out armed robbery, a specific person being robbed by an armed robber. Is your response going to be different once you know who it is? Absolutely. Absolutely. By the way, if it's a crew and they've got a couple of armed guys, you be a good witness. Third point, what is your response? If it's an active shooter, are you going to engage? How are you going to engage? Cover, concealment. Can you engage at the level you want? Once again, the civilian in Indiana took shots at a distance, 40 to 50 yards. What you are training for is the ability to use distance and time to your advantage. That's why you're learning to shoot. And those are what's going to protect you in these situations. So once again, I'm Michael Bain. This is Triggered. You can find us on michaelbain.tv, where you can also find our podcast, where we go into a little bit more detail on this very subject. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us on Rumble. Thank you to Hunter's HD Gold for sponsoring us this week. We'll see you next week.